Next on AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show. Here's Brian O'Neill.
And very glad to have on with us Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard. Sheriff, thanks for phoning in this morning.
Oh, glad to do it. Thanks for having me, Brian.
Great. Well, so many things to talk about this morning. I see the Evening Tribune has a story about the total number of accidents. It was up to 33 when the Tribune spoke with you the other day.
That's correct. Our deputies responded to 33 either crashes, slide-offs, or disabled vehicles due to the weather. And then obviously the state police probably had that many or more.
Sure. The Sheriff's Department recently got, some kind of award, state recognition of excellence.
Yes. So the New York State Sheriff's Association creates standards of excellence through an accreditation program, and three of our four divisions are accredited through the Sheriff's Association, and we just went through reaccreditation where they sent inspectors from across the state in to look at our process, our protocols, our policy, and our practices, and we've been reaccredited both in the jail division and the civil division, and our accreditation in our court security division is still ongoing. It's not up for reaccreditation for another year. So 3 of our 4 divisions are accredited through the Sheriff's Association. I believe we're one of 21 counties in the state that meet those requirements.
Sheriff, is it, what's the word, unusual? Is it rare? Is it kind of an exceptional, maybe is the best word, thing for so many members of the sheriff's of a sheriff's department to be EMTs, emergency medical technicians?
It is unusual. I believe there's only one other county in the state that is engaged in the same program that we are. Again, looking at Steuben County, we're so rural and we're so dependent on volunteer services throughout probably 2/3 of the county. We felt it was necessary to, in the life-saving aspect of public safety, to be able to bring that to the table and assist our volunteer brother and sisters and be able to keep folks alive for the ambulance to have time to get there.
Sheriff, a lot of this obviously is because of the fentanyl problem, but do you find that your deputies also take part in, maybe someone had an accident because of a medical issue, heart attack, diabetic coma, seizures, something like that? Do the deputies often find themselves in non-drug related medical situations?
Yeah, actually, the majority of what we're handling now are non-drug related medical issues. I believe right now, I looked at the records last week, and we were around 55 medical responses that the agency has done. Only 3 of those were to administer Narcan, and the rest were to assist. A lot of it is at accident scenes, crash scenes. A lot of it is when an ambulance service has a driver but no EMT, we'll hop in and help out.
Yeah, that's got to be enormously helpful to both the accident victims and the patients and the other emergency rescue workers. Talking this morning live with Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard. Well, the big news for the Sheriff's Department and this fall was Operation Fall Cleanup. And I was just reviewing that. 36 arrests. And these were fentanyl, heroin, cocaine, and methamphetamine arrests. Sheriff, have any of the trials happened yet?
No, they were all based on indictments at that time, so several of them have gone through some preliminary hearings, but I don't believe there's been any trials yet. And that was, again, I can't compliment enough the collaborative efforts amongst the agencies that participate in the DA's drug task force throughout Steuben County, because that reached from Lindley to Wayland and back, with a lot of it centering around Bath. But everybody working together, everybody collaborating to make it happen. Without that, we wouldn't have the success we're having.
Sheriff, the drug arrests locally, do you ever well, let me ask this specifically. Did you find in any of those 36 cases any ties to bigger drug operations, maybe even organized crime?
So a lot of our narcotics trafficking that we have in this area comes out of Rochester. A lot of it comes out of Elmira. We occasionally have it coming out of Philadelphia, up I-99. So almost all of them are tied in either peripherally or directly to a larger organization of distribution.
Yeah. Talking to Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard. Sheriff, when you or members of the Sheriff's Department give the what we used to call Say No to Drugs talks, and maybe they're still called that, when you go into schools to talk to the students, is the warning about drugs a little bit different than it was maybe when I was in school in the 1980s? Meaning, is it more warnings about life and death? Particularly when we think about the heroin laced with fentanyl or fentanyl alone.
It absolutely is. We actually have a program that we have a video of a person who was actually overdosed on opioids at a traffic stop and is administered Narcan and is revived by EMS as part of a program that came out of Monroe County. And it's not, hey, you're going to shut doors for your future. It's, this can kill you, and it can kill you this weekend. You know, it's a much different message. It's not, this is your brain on drugs, any question. It's, this is life and death. And the trouble is also so many things are laced with fentanyl now that if someone buys something illicitly that they think is not as harmful, they really don't know, because we've seen marijuana laced with fentanyl. We've seen there was a pill manufacturer down in the Chemung County area that was stamping out pills that looked just like Xanax that was actually fentanyl and causing overdoses. That's the trouble is when you're buying things that are illegal to begin with, there's really no oversight or control as to how it's made or what's mixed in with it when you purchase it. So it's a much more a matter of life and death, the communication to our young folks about drug use today than ever before.
The students, and I know you would know a lot of this from Norman McCumsky's work with the fighting addiction, the addiction council there in Steuben County. Could you give us a sense of what high school students who are experimenting with drugs, what kind of drugs that they're using?
So a lot of what we see in the high school starts with marijuana or vaping and then goes to prescription meds, either meds from mom and dad's or grandma and grandpa's medicine cabinet or ones that they buy off of another student. And again, there's a lot of mixing. There's legally prescribed drugs mixed with other drugs that were not legally prescribed or stolen from someone else and resold. We see a lot of that, and what we know now is that that's a stairway or a gateway into the use of more dangerous drugs, in that the folks that start with marijuana go to pills. By the time they're 20, they're using heroin or fentanyl, and they're hooked on those opiates to the extent where then they don't physically feel able to step out of that addiction without treatment, without help, without being in a dedicated program to help them recover.
I know that the people who supported the idea of legalizing marijuana would talk about what was that late 1920s, early 30s movies that they used to show, Reefer Madness, which is kind of a movie that is laughed at today by some. But as far as just the reaction to marijuana itself, what kind of reactions do you see these days? I know you talked earlier about fentanyl being in some of the marijuana, but what else are you seeing?
Well, it's interesting when you talk about marijuana because there's been an enormous amount of money poured into the publications in order to downplay its effects on society and make it appear to be a better choice, when in fact we're not talking about recreational marijuana use. We're talking about the commercialization of marijuana. It's big money. It's a billion-dollar industry, and most of the money that is being spent is to lobby state legislators and also to create a public program to demonstrate the alleged benefits and downplay the dangerousness of it. What I can tell you as a law enforcement practitioner, what I see is that it's absolutely a gateway for our youth. And if it's legalized for folks over 21, that means people under 21 are going to have it. If it's legalized to possess it, then you can get it wherever you want. And it doesn't mean that you bought it at a legal establishment. It means that you bought it wherever you could get it cheapest. So in the states that have legalized it, the black market sales of marijuana hasn't gone down, it's exploded. So for me, it's a public safety and health issue in that it's a gateway to more serious drugs, but also we still don't understand all of the health effects to people's lungs and in regards to cancer and other things in order to make an informed decision on it. And all we have to do is look as far as vaping and the deaths that has caused. Most of that is from THC-laced vaping.
You know, that was my next question, talking to Sheriff Allard. Sheriff, on the topic of vaping, the state's come out strongly against it. What are you and your deputies seeing with the whole vaping phenomenon?
We see it a lot in the schools. It's an epidemic in the schools, I do believe. When I talk to our school resource officers, they say the growth of vaping has been exponential over the last 3 years. And as we see, that's what kind of confuses me about the state's position sometimes, is that the governor has come out so strongly, and I believe correctly, against vaping for our teens and our youth, yet we're still having this conversation about the legalization of marijuana. And to me, the two are tied. Why would you support one and not the other? Or why would you say this one's bad and ignore all that you know is bad about the other one? So I know that vaping is on the rise amongst our teens, and that it's seen as a harmless by most of them, is seen as a harmless activity. But again, anything that causes addiction, whether it's to nicotine or to THC or leading on to marijuana and other more serious drugs, to me, that's an issue. It's a public safety issue, and it's an issue that harms our youth. So I guess they've kind of turned a blind eye to it, and now all of a sudden people are dying, and there's a big move to do something about it. I think that we should have made that move long ago.
We're talking with Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard. Going to take a quick break and check the forecast with Rob. When we come back, we're going to continue our conversation. We're going to talk once again with the sheriff about the upcoming criminal justice reforms and find out what the sheriff's plans are to deal with the changes.
UR Medicine Primary Care in Hornell is pleased to introduce Dr. Joanne Nazareth to our community. Dr. Nazareth is an internal medicine doctor with an interest in chronic diseases like diabetes and hypertension. Her goal is to help patients enjoy the best quality of life. Dr. Nazareth is now accepting new adult patients at 7309 Seneca Road in Hornell. To learn more, call 607-385-3700 or visit dr.urmc.edu/Hornell.
Checking in now with meteorologist Rob Carolyn, who says today what he said yesterday and the day before, more snow on the way.
That's right, but the good news, Brian, is it's not particularly heavy. We've got the jet stream over the top of us, so we have these little weak disturbances coming down at us. The one headed our way for tomorrow looks a little bit stronger than the other ones we've seen. That may be able to put an inch or two down, and then we're going to break into some sunshine with high pressure building across the area for Saturday. Then the pattern's going to change. Looks like storm's going to get set to go west of us. Anytime that happens, we flood the region with warmer air coming up from the south and west. So precipitation early next week looks like it's going to take the form of rain and not snow. Today, cloudy and breezy. There will be some flurries and snow showers around. Temperatures today 30 to 35. Sunrise this morning at 7:24. Sunset tonight at 4:38. Tonight, cloudy with a few flurries or snow showers still possible. Nighttime lows 20 to 25. Tomorrow, some light snow at times. We may pick up an inch or two as that disturbance goes by. It'll be 35 to 40. The snow will taper off to some flurries and snow showers, and then tomorrow night we're colder, 15 to 20. On Saturday, turning partly sunny, 25 to 30. We're going to cloud up with highs in the 30s on Sunday, Brian.
Thank you, Rob. Back to Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard. Sheriff, the upcoming reforms, especially the bail reform, we've spoken about this with you before, and you and Steuben County District Attorney Brooks Baker and so many others are just wringing their hands and shaking their heads and thinking, what were these New York City lawmakers thinking in terms of the especially the criminal justice reforms, especially the bail reforms. Wondering, does law enforcement have any plans at the Steuben County Sheriff's Department that you can share on how you can deal with some of these changes that are really going to not just inconvenience you guys in law enforcement, but from what you feel, I would say the general public?
Well, and again, everything about this makes the public less safe. And it strikes me, so if, and as far as preparing, we're doing a training today, as a matter of fact, later today, with all of our road patrol on the changes in the law and what is mandated and what's not, and what gets arraigned, who gets arraigned, who doesn't, all of that stuff, because it's honestly very complicated, even for the deputies, to determine who has to have an appearance ticket, who has to go to arraignment. And the issue is even though they go to arraignment, 90% of them, I would say probably 95% of them, are going to be released immediately. A good case, and we'll call this a hypothetical case, but it's a very real case. I'm a person who's involved in a domestic violence incident. I threaten my spouse with a weapon. My spouse gets away from me and goes to her parents' home. I go kick the door in and threaten her some more, and the police come and arrest me and have to fight with me to take me into custody. I'm going to get released. There's no way the judge can send me to jail pre-trial on that base or on that set of facts. There's over 400 crimes that are going to have to be released. I think there's about a dozen where they can actually remand them to jail. And in that circumstance, even though I've broken into a home, I've threatened somebody with a weapon, I fought with the police, I'm going to be brought in, processed, arraigned, and released. And that victim is not going to have the opportunity to make a safety plan. They're not going to have an opportunity or time for cooling off. As we know, in most domestic violence situations, that cooling off period is necessary for the safety of the victim. There's not going to be anything but an order of protection in place after my arraignment to say that I can't do those things again or escalate those things when I return. And it's flies in the face of everything that we know on the law enforcement end, everything that we've observed over the last 50 years in the domestic violence realm, everything that we realize we need to do in order to keep people safe, that's now been pulled out from underneath us, almost as if someone pulled the rug out from under us and said, okay, go out and do your job now, but we've just taken this elemental tool away from you. You're no longer able to access this. That, to me, that's the most basic issue with the bail reform, is that it makes victims much less safe.
Wondering, have you reached out with the state government imposing these new rules? Have you reached out to anyone in the federal government, maybe someone who might be sympathetic, like former Corning Mayor Congressman Tom Reed, as a, and said, hey, can you come up with anything to counter this?
As a matter of fact, Congressman Reed is aware of it, and he and other congressmen came out with a public statement opposing it and sent it to the governor. I think there was about 8 or 10 congressmen across New York State that joined in a proclamation to the governor saying, hey, slow this down, take another look at it, and that they were in opposition to it. The City of Corning Council recently passed a resolution asking the state to do a 1-year moratorium on this so that we can research it better and come up with more common sense reform. I talked to Mayor Buckley, who so kindly sat in for me Monday, and he said that the Cornell City Council is looking at a similar thing. And I'm going to bring it up at the public safety meeting on Monday and encourage the county legislature to do a similar resolution. So I think as local governments continue to voice their opinion and push back against this, it's my hope that combined with the media press conferences that have occurred already across the state, that perhaps we can get some attention in Albany. And, nobody disputes that we can always do things better in the criminal justice system. Nobody disputes that there's a disparity in the bail process against indigent folks. But let's not throw out the baby with the bathwater here. Let's sit down with practitioners and stakeholders and let the process work the way it's supposed to, not just come up with a special interest diatribe from downstate and shove it through and make everybody swallow it. And that's what we're asking for, is the ability to be heard and the ability to have a hand in the crafting of common sense reform.
We've been speaking live this morning with Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard. Sheriff Allard, I want to thank you so much for joining us today.
Always my pleasure, Brian.
Yeah, we got to have you back more often, Sheriff.
Sounds like a winner.
All righty, Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard, thank you so much for joining us here on AM 1480 WLEA Hornell. And they're saying on the wire this morning that House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is about to have a press conference, so we'll hear what that's about. I know it's about impeachment, but we'll get the details shortly from Fox. Stay with us.